Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Semrush webinar. Today, we are having a very, very special one. So we're joined by Deepak Shukla, one of the most respected London agency owners that I think I've ever met. Deepak, how are you doing?
I am self-isolating. I'm well, alive in this strange environment that we're in, and everything's good over on my side. How are you, mate?
It's going good. It's been interesting. The self-isolation thing's a bit weird and a bit wary. We've been working from home for 2 weeks now, but in terms of like not being allowed to go out for more than half an hour just to get some exercise, that's a bit weird. But yeah, it's fine. You're quite a prolific runner. You've done like ultra marathons and stuff like that. How are you coping with like the shut in and the lack of exercise? What are you doing to stay sane?
It's a good question. I think that so running, thankfully, is the one thing that is still sanctioned, right? It's go out for your daily exercise. So the irony is that in all of this, the one thing that I love doing is still that. So I'll just still go out for my daily runs, and sometimes I'll just run a bit longer. So I'll do a 30-minute to an hour run. Sometimes other days it'll be 15, 20 minutes. But thankfully, that's the one thing that is my sanity. But I know for a lot of other people that used to go into the gym, used to maybe doing weights, or used to doing like HIIT sessions or body pump or studio-based work, I think it must be a big transition.
Yeah, it must be a massive transition. When Boris Johnson announced the lockdown for the UK, and he said, we will still allow you to go out running every hour. And I was like, still allow? Oh shit, I better start. So today we're going to be talking about building a remote agency. Whereabouts is the agency from, right? So you've got a quite a large agency with lots of people around the globe, right?
Yeah, so I guess that I'm based in London, England. The team, I think there's only now two of us that are based in London. Alex, she's in London somewhere. I don't actually know where she is, Ross. Good to meet everybody, by the way. I see
There
people
we
are
go. Greener SEO. I just ran to the computer. There we go. Ran to the computer. Thank you, Greener SEO.
We've got people in. I can see the comments actually. So we've got Akash from India, Ankit from India. Samantak, did I pronounce your name right? I'll be impressed with myself if I did. So we've got the reason I said that actually, Ross, is that we've got an office based in Vadodara, India, which is in Ahmedabad. So it's kind of a bit more central and south. And then we've got a lot of people that I said a lot of people. There's several people that work from home. So there's a couple of people in the States, and then we've got a husband and wife team that work out of Jerusalem in Israel, which is pretty cool.
Wow. I used to share a flat with a husband and wife. I had to move out because they were either arguing or doing the opposite of arguing, which is, you don't want to be stepping over people passionately or dispassionately arguing with themselves. That was a tricky one.
Sounds very intimate. I can totally imagine and appreciate that from my days of house sharing as well. That you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. You hear everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen any fun clangers on any client calls, anything like that? Like people's partners walking through the background with no shirt on or anything like that? Or
so I've seen a WhatsApp video that's been a video that's been going around on WhatsApp of a team call on Zoom. You might have already received it. God knows who's got it, but there's a chap who forgets he's still on call and he's walking around stark naked, basically. And I've seen that one.
yeah, I seen the one where the girl doesn't realize that there's a camera on and she goes to the bathroom, takes a full-on gnarly dump, whilst all of her colleagues are on the chat. So yeah, be warned, guys. This camera thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, greener SEO, great visual. Yeah, sorry about that. Whatever you do not think about anyone in the bathroom right now. So I think the room's filling up. We got some people from all over the place. We've got Vicente from Mexico. Hola, amigo. We have got a teen blogger from India. Hello, teen blogger. Thank you guys for joining us. I think you're in for a real treat because Deepak and I both run agencies based out of London. I have all of my staff as in the house with some remoters, whereas Deepak is fully remote. So I'm absolutely fascinated by this process. just before we get kind of into it, Deepak, I want to share a story of how you've actually helped me with my business. Deepak actually optimized my hiring process for remote work, so we could get down to, instead of it being a 5-stage process, which it usually is, down to a 2-stage process. And instead of it taking, seeing 20 people and taking all my staff's time up, we can see hundreds of people and qualify people much better. So thank you for that. I'd love to kind of get into the impetus of why you decided to go remote, why you chose the countries you chose, and things like that. So please, over to you.
No, thank you, Ross, for the introduction. I think that, so I started the agency having spent a lot of my 20s being a digital nomad. I say digital nomad, that wasn't my intention. It wasn't that I wanted to travel the world and freelance. It was more that I was living abroad. And at that time, just by coincidence, I got used to ultimately remote working. So I had to, when I was living in Rio or living in Lisbon or living in Turin, that I'd have to make money effectively. And it made no sense to try and build up something that was local whilst I was moving every 3 to 6 months. So that was during my 20s. So for timeline, for those that are wondering, we're talking from maybe around 2011 to 2015, 16. I was ultimately spent a lot of time outside of the UK. So during that whole journey, I would build an income from being a remote digital freelancer, or I worked also as being someone who'd help people write their job applications or their university applications. And everything was done, as you can imagine, Ross, on Skype at that time. We'd exchange emails and were beginning to use Google Drive more and more. But fundamentally, they were the 3 tools that I worked from. So then when I began to set up the agency, I knew that I don't really want to meet people, to be honest with you. as social as I enjoy being, I really knew that I didn't want to meet people. But at the same time, I also knew that I needed to establish the fact that people would feel like they've met me, to trust me and any business that I represented enough to be able to actually part money and spend money on something like SEO. Right. And SEO, as we know, the result is offset. You don't put, 100 quid, a grand, 10 grand in. Pearl lemon, Nikhil. So pearl like a pearl necklace, second word lemon. So for you guys that want to quickly Google who the hell I am, do look it up. That and my name, Deepak Shukla. Hey, Jessica. So yeah, I guess I wanted to work remotely because I wanted to continue living the lifestyle that I had. And I also, at the same time, knew that I needed to convey how and where my expertise lie, and also communicate enough trust to effectively convince, the guy in the bedroom as well as the guy in the boardroom as well as the
the guy in the bedroom. How are you getting these deals, Deepak? Are these nefarious lucid affairs? No, I'm only kidding. Maybe clarify what you mean by the guy in the bedroom.
Yeah, sure. So I basically wanted to establish enough trust that someone who's running a very successful company from either their bedroom, or is the marketing director who's sitting in a boardroom, or the bloke down the pub who's got quite a successful company sitting in his bar, I want all of them to part money with me. And I thought, how do you, the way that I thought about it was, how do you effectively communicate and establish trust enough that someone can look at you online and think that, Ross Tavendale looks super trustworthy. I checked him out. And for me, there were 3 things that needed to fall in alignment. The 3 things that I thought would convince me to send anybody else money effectively were, number 1, do I trust the man? So the man in this instance would be the sales director. So this applies to a lot of businesses. It's really important for me, and it's really important that Deepak Shukla had a brand. So be like, okay, great. I've looked up Deepak Shukla because Deepak is the person who's pitching me Pearl Lemon. So I want to make sure that I can trust Deepak and his character in general. The second part of it was the actual business. So who is Deepak representing? Oh, it's Pearl Lemon. Now let me, just like Nikhil did, let me Google Pearl Lemon whilst Deepak is on the phone to me, or Deepak is on Zoom, and there's maybe 2 people in a call, or maybe there's 1 person in a call, and I almost hear it 40% of the time. You'd hear a light tap of the keyboard as I was talking. Someone would be quickly looking me up, having a quick check on LinkedIn, jumping onto YouTube and just not really reading, but just flicking through to get a sense of, okay, who is this guy and who is this company? So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was, is his actual product that he's selling legitimate, and is it a good product? So these three things for me have to be in alignment to ensure that you can get all three of those characters, because the guy in the bedroom is most concerned probably about the results and then everything else, because he's very results orientated. The guy in the actual boardroom is concerned with the company brand as well as the company results, because there needs to be a cultural alignment. And then the guy who's in the bar is probably most interested in the person who's selling the product, because he's like, you know what, this is a barroom type conversation. I don't know much about SEO. I don't know much about your company. Doesn't really matter, Deepak, but can I trust you? So by focusing on all three, you enable yourself to get every type of customer. And they were the three ways that I began to categorize people, which is bedroom, boardroom, and bar. How can I convince all three?
Love that. That's absolutely fantastic. Bedroom, boardroom, and bar. For me, it's usually the other way around. I meet them in a boardroom, I take them to the bar, and I end up in their bedroom. But that's absolutely fantastic. So essentially what you're doing there is you're looking at that entire sales funnel and all the reasons why people say yes to you, and you're actually breaking it down quite scientifically and just making sure you've got all those boxes checked. One of the things the guys in the chat are asking is they're saying getting clients when you work remotely is difficult, ? I imagine definitely not easy. You seem to have quite a very high level of lead gen going on the site, but when you first started, like, what was happening there? Like, how were you getting these people in when you didn't have the background and all that? Like, how do you get the first guys in?
Absolutely, it's a good question. I think that it's difficult to do all three. So all three of those boardroom, bedroom, bar scenarios definitely take time, but you can definitely all at least capitalize upon one. So Aditya Singh, Jessica Zoon, Nikhil Bhatia, what happens when I look you up online? Or what happens when I look you up on LinkedIn? Or what happens when I look up anything that you reference online? It's not that difficult to build up ultimately a little bit of credibility for yourself by effectively demonstrating, you know, the value that you can add. And then when you combine that with the outreach that you do, it's then a case of understanding the channels that are important. So I focused, Ross, on particular platforms that for me would net particular kinds of clients. So the bedroom and the bar type scenarios, okay, guys, the bedroom and the bar type scenarios, the bedroom is Upwork. Upwork is a great platform where you'll get small businesses that can be very profitable, as well as small businesses that are not so profitable, that are very results focused and want to work with someone who's very technically savvy. Okay, so Upwork is a good place from that. So that was where I started. It's free to create a profile. You can build a template and then you can begin doing outreach. And on Upwork, the best place to actually build your profile is upon Upwork and nowhere else. So that was the first place. The second place, now we're moving into the kind of bar type scenario, if you will. It's angel.co. So angel.co is where the world meets startups, as they say. And then you get a lot of a mix between the bar and the bedroom type character. It can be boardroom, but it's less so because they're funded companies and they're typically people of our age who are pretty switched on. They've raised some money and they're hiring quickly and they want someone who's just smart and they think that this guy gets it. So those two platforms are where literally in the early days, the first 30 to 90 days, I would submit applications. I would submit applications. I would submit applications. And I would work really hard to have a good Upwork profile. So guys, if you Googled Upwork, Deepak Shukla, you'd find my profile. And Angel, my profile is a bit outdated now, but they were the two platforms that I used in the early days. And then it was volume, if I'm being honest, Ross. I submitted a lot of applications to a lot of actual companies. But the other thing that I think sometimes people get wrong is I aggressively ask for feedback when I fail. So I would approach everybody and 3 out of 5 would ignore me, but I'd say, what was better about the other guy's application? And I'd also ask, can you share their proposal with me? Because then you'll get a net benefit, because I'd always,
a good one.
Yeah. I'd always ask for proposal sharing, because even you learn through every rejection that you get. And the beautiful thing about a decentralized business is that you can do kind of high volume lead gen of that nature, and you can assimilate and collate a lot of information about what your competitors are doing, and that's the two platforms that I used in the early days. And then I began to get a bit smarter with it, was that I began to record my process, and then I would give it and I would outsource it. I'd begin to outsource the process of lead gen once I figured out that, you know what, this is a semi-templatized proposal. These are the filters that I would use on Upwork as well as Angel. Now I can give that to someone based in India or the Philippines, and for $5 to $7 per hour, just 2 hours a day, they could submit 20 applications on Upwork and 20 applications on angel.co. And all of a sudden I'm sending out 40 proposals a day, and I'm not actually involved.
That's amazing. So Naveed's asked, are you referring to your proposal as an application? So can we differentiate the two?
Sure, guys. So I'm referring to applications. So when I say proposal, I do mean an application. So it's someone who's posted a job saying that, and this is what's, so Sanjay, angel.co. What's beautiful about Angel is that they, and I've won about 50, maybe around £50,000 worth of business in the early days from Angel, because they specifically say on Angel, we're looking for a digital marketer who is remote, who can help us grow the business. They pre-qualify themselves and they say, we recently raised 2 million and they've got a job application out. And then you can either, and you could do either or. You can do application, or you can find the founder's email and you can pitch them a proposal. So that's the two approaches you can take. And I began soon enough to just doing it all via email. So then I fell out of the actual application process and I began pitching just the founders on cold email outreach. But it never felt like it was cold email, because Ross, because Ross at Type A Media would have put a job out for a remote SEO manager, and then I can build mail merges based upon specifically what Ross has put, saying, hey Ross, it's Deepak here. I hope you don't mind me emailing you. I noticed you recently put out a proposal on Angel looking for a remote SEO manager. Would love to have a chat with you about it. Apologies for the direct email, but these are the things that I think would make me a worthy candidate. Totally templated, but it feels totally personal. And so that was how I scaled it.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for how smart that is. So the reason being, if you're thinking about the HR process or the recruitment, so what essentially is happening on Angel when you're giving these applications, these are HR people and heads of departments who are looking at them and qualifying them before they go up to the CEO. And what you've done is you said, well, I don't want to speak to HR, I want to speak to the founder. So you've just taken them completely out of the loop and went to source. That is a mega hack. I don't think, like, for people in the chat, if you're doing that, just going straight to source, going to the main guy in the company, that's a really good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps I don't give myself enough credit. And what was interesting was that once you discover you can do that on Angel, you think, where else can I do this? I then won around, in the early days, I won about £20,000 worth of work from Craigslist. Because you can do the same thing on Craigslist. You can do the same thing on Gumtree, because there are small businesses who are profitable that want to hire a full-time paid intern that just quickly put together a job ad on Craigslist, and Craigslist gives you the direct email to respond to that application. So again, you're able to, on a platform like Craigslist, go to the busiest cities. And you can Google it, and it's like San Francisco is one of the busiest cities, which makes sense for Craigslist. You've got these startup guys who are quite anti-recruitment company that decide to put job ads on all of the free portals, of which Craigslist is a significant one, and you just repeat ultimately the same process that you were doing on Angel. So I quickly then began to realize that where else can I replicate this exact same process? So that was Upwork, that was Angel, that was Craigslist, that was Gumtree. And then all of a sudden, you then focused, as you got smarter at it, at looking for people that would advertise for paid positions that were either remote or in-house, and then just begin going solely after those guys.
So Jessica's asking a really good question on this, and I was came to my head as well. If you were pitching that to me, I want to know, she's asking, at what point would you let the client know that you're working as an agency rather than they're not buying Deepak, they're buying Deepak's agency.
Sure. So Jessica, you could let them know at any stage of the process. And the part that's important here is those 3 alignments we spoke about. So that's the bedroom, the boardroom, and the bar person. So what they want to look at is, does Deepak Shukla feel built out enough as an individual that, you know what, I think I could work with his agency anyway. And that's where having a personal brand becomes super important, because their mindset is that I want to work with an individual. But then if they look up Pearl Lemon or they look up your agency and they see that, you know what, Deepak's got his brand there, he's got these videos, it feels like it's going to be a very personal experience. Oftentimes, at the end of the day, they'd say, you know what, I'm willing to give this a shot. And the secondary element of it is that for a lot of people, they don't know what they want. They just know that they have a problem and they're looking for a solution, and they just want the best positioned or packaged solution. So people, and here's the other interesting part. What's powerful when you go through the angel process is that it became really useful for me to get into the mindset of the business owner, because then I began posting jobs on Angel to understand the process they went through when they were putting an ad up online. So that gave me a decent insight into what people are doing on the other side. So certainly some of them, you know, were like, oh, we prefer to work with an individual. And in those instances, again, it's like what Ross said previously, it's difficult to delegate the project onwards later. Jessica, the thing is that buying me, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So often objections occur when you plant them in your prospect's mind. And up until you plant it, a lot of the time for me, that as soon as I stopped talking about the fact that I ran an agency, it became less of a problem that I ran an agency. They just wanted their problem solved. And I'd say, brilliant, I'm really excited. I'm going to introduce Sam, because Sam and I worked together and we did a lot of great work, and he's going to help support and assist me. And in those instances, they say, okay, great. Who's Sam? I'd say, just, you know, Sam helped me out on specific projects, etc. And this is something I think he could, you know, be really powerful with. Am I okay to make an introduction on email? And she said, and a lot of the time they say, okay, yeah, fine. And then the objection might be, oh, Deepak, are you sure it's going to be you or is it going to be Sam? And I will say, don't worry, it's going to be both of us. I'm going to be here to answer all of your questions. But then actually it's Sam who's answering 50% of the questions. And very quickly, as soon as they see that Sam can be trusted in the first 30 to 45 days, then the delegation moves over actually very quickly. So that's kind of how I manage that process, Jessica, if that makes sense.
So a couple of guys in the chat, Ankit is asking if you use any tools to do all this management of remote teams. So you said like Google Drive and things like that. That's one of the things. Is there anything else you're using for a kind of day-to-day communications thing? He's also asked about cold emails, but we'll go on to that in a second.
No, absolutely. So for my day-to-day communication, guys, we use Basecamp to manage processes. That's where once a client comes on board, we'll know the specific steps that they need to follow. But in terms of communication, we use WhatsApp and we use
Deepak uses WhatsApp, lots and lots and lots.
So most of our project management happens on WhatsApp. That's how we communicate with clients. As quickly as we can, we get them off email and we get them onto something that can make use of voice or video. We're as a team quite ultimately anti-email. I found then it enables us to communicate more effectively with our clients. They get a lot more alignment in terms of, well, what's the tonality, what's the meaning behind what you're trying to say, and ultimately it's 100 times faster. By the way, you also use this for pitching. If you ever get an email and you see their mobile numbers in the signature, WhatsApp them, because it's
I love that.
It's a huge pattern interrupt. It's a huge pattern interrupt. And even better, what we've begun doing recently is we'll get our phone and we'll record a video saying, hey, Frank, it's Deepak here from Pearl Lemon. I just saw your phone number in the email. And I just wanted to say, whatever you want to say. And then you can send a video across on WhatsApp. So that's also the new thing that some of the sales guys have begun doing recently. So if you ever get an opportunity to drop them a voice note or a video message, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Skype, does all of those things, and both the prospecting as well as the client relationship management elements of it. Doing both actually increases productivity, reduces churn, and really opened up a lot stronger and more robust communication. So if I'm being honest, Ankit, I don't use a lot of email when we manage clients. And when we do, we respond with use Looms. So we'll record a video screencast walking through the result that we sent across in a spreadsheet, because we appreciate that some clients don't care about the spreadsheet. Some clients want to examine the spreadsheet. Some clients just want the top line context. So it's also about catering for, again, we go back to the bedroom, barroom, boardroom type user. How are they used to seeing communication? How are they used to being presented information? So the boardroom person is much more likely potentially to want longer form email. But that's, again, it depends who you're dealing with within the business. So we've got a couple of corporate clients who, whilst the people they report to like big emails, we just send them WhatsApp voice notes and videos, and then they use that. And that's the kind of dialogue they prefer. So everything, I think, is changing right now. And a lot of people have this perception that, Deepak, that's not, I don't know if that's going to work with my clients. I don't know. You've got to try it. You've just got to try it and see. And more often than not, at worst, you get a neutral response at worst. But a lot of the time you can shift it. And all of a sudden you create 2 more hours in the day, because instead of writing a 15-minute email, you can be on your way to the pub to meet your friend, and you could be WhatsApping several clients to give them an update as to where we're at. And that's what we've established internally that continues, I think, hopefully to be effective.
I absolutely love that. So I actually stole that idea from you and implemented it with some of our clients, and I can confirm that it does work really well. So as the managing director of a company, you don't usually get to speak to the clients after a period of time, and they see your face maybe at the start from a sales point of view, but then afterwards they're like, well, they actually want the team because the team are better than us. I mean, I don't know about you, Deepak, but my techs in my agency can run circles around me when it comes to technical now. Probably the same on yours. That's maybe a good one for Jessica as well. Jessica, if they want to buy you, just be like, hey, my team are better at it. I'm good at managing a business now, not at the core job anymore. So talking about people and things like that, one of the things I mentioned at the start was you helped me kind of automate a part of the hiring funnel, and it's worked really well for us. Can you talk about how you're going through the hiring process to actually hire people into the agency remotely? Because usually it's a phone call and a face-to-face and like all sorts of prolonged processes. Are you using recruiters? Like, how are you doing it?
Absolutely. It's a good question. So there were a couple of things that I knew. So guys, if you're thinking about hiring, these are the often challenges that you get met with. Like you sink a lot of time in people that are already ultimately not effective or the best people. And it could be for all kinds of reasons, right? It's not just cultural fit. It could be their commute to work. It could be their commute to clients. It could be like any number of reasons. So as far and wide as you can, for me, I wanted to make sure that the logistics were resolved. So in terms of recruitment, we don't use recruiters. I use, again, Angel. So where I pitch is also where I hire. I use Upwork. I use Craigslist. I use Gumtree. So all of the platforms that I began to pitch people on, I also began to post adverts to see if I could hire people, right? So that was really great on both sides to get used to the pitching process, because I was being pitched too, as well as pitching. And then the second stage of it is it's really, really important to make sure that you have, your kind of your T's and your I's dotted and crossed. So for us, that was, if you're working remotely, how fast is your machine? So I would ask people to send a screenshot of the spec of their machine. So I got a sense of how quickly they could open up 4 different Chrome browsers. Because if that was slow, I knew that would impact their ability to deliver work to me. So in some instances where you get a great candidate, I would upgrade their machines for free, which would just mean buying them for 50 quid additional RAM, because that would lead to a 15% net improvement in productivity in the work that they do. So there's certain prerequisites in the onboarding form. So that's your Wi-Fi speed, upload, download. You need to send me a screenshot of a speed test. Your actual machine spec, you need to send me a screenshot of the machine that you use. The third element is that you need to send a video introduction of yourself. So again, use Loom. I would ask anyone to actually pitch themselves on Use Loom, saying, hey, it's Richard here. I'd love to work with Pearl Lemon, etc. And simple things like that trip a lot of people up, because they send you a WeTransfer file, or they write in the box where they're meant to include a video link, or they send you a link to Vimeo that's encrypted, but they've not given you the password to watch the video, or they do send a good video, they say they have good internet, but then the video is pixelated. So then all of a sudden, you know that they haven't got a camera, or you know that there's problems with their audio, or you hear children running around in the background and you think, I don't know if that person can be on client calls. So there's lots and lots of layers of due diligence that happen. And at that stage, we ask them to send a WhatsApp voice note to Lydia, my internal marketing director, to proceed with the next stage of the application. So then they need to get onto WhatsApp. And then what we look for is how quickly do they respond to Lydia's messages? Do they use read receipts? And how quickly and effectively are they responding? Because we want to know if they're quick responders. And if all of that happens, then they'll set up a call once all of that happens, Lydia has a preset built series of voice notes from me. So she'll forward all of the voice notes to the candidate. Hi, it's Deepak here. If you're receiving this, it's just on Lydia's WhatsApp. Thank you so much, etc., etc. And then we judge for how quickly do they respond to the answers, how effective are their answers, how robust are they? And at that stage, if Lydia's happy, then we set up a phone call with myself. And that's kind of the process that by the time they even get to talking to me, there's been so much weeding out that you get someone who is familiar with recording videos, presents themselves relatively well, has good Wi-Fi at home, have responded to all of Lydia's messages quickly, and can present on voice note relatively well. And we don't look at resumes. We point blank don't look at resumes. I ignore them for almost 100% of people, because once we get to that stage, I know that someone's pretty switched on if they've gone through all of that process, because a lot of people just can't be bothered. And that, guys, in a big nutshell, is my recruitment process.
Yeah, that's absolutely phenomenal. If anyone's not using WhatsApp voice notes, and just like all of this technology, it's all around us that we use every day, not applying it for business just seems kind of crazy. And it's actually you that kind of opens my eyes to just how, and actually it bugs people so much now when I'll send them like what voice notes constantly, because you can say a million things in a voice note, whereas text is just so dull. Naveed's asking the difference between how would you pitch if you have an in-house SEO team, how would you pitch your SEO service? So Naveed, I think you're asking, how would you pitch a company if they already had an in-house SEO team? Is that what you're asking?
So Naveed, it's a good question. Again, this is the area that's, can I trust the company's product? So you probably potentially have a perception problem if you've already reached the stage, Naveed, where you're in a pitch and they're considering hiring you and they've got their own internal SEO team. Well done, because it does mean they think you've got enough expertise that have been established to consider hiring an ancillary or a secondary team to support their team. So if you've got to that stage, that means they're happy enough with your SEO services, but then they're looking for probably differentiation. What can you do that our SEO team don't do, right? That's the classic question. So it's wise to think about it in those terms and make sure you don't talk about, well, we'll build links, we'll do link outreach, unless they have limited capacity to execute on those pieces. So there's a clear division of labor. But if they're looking, and if they're looking for that special source, then that's what you need to position yourselves as, doing something that's in some way unique, that's different to what they could do internally. I think that that's kind of the element that has proven effective to us. If you're pitching and you're not at the stage yet where you've had a successful pitch, then it's a perception problem. Then it's the perception that you guys aren't experts enough to work alongside even our experts, because there's no distinction of, well, Pearl Lemon do what we do in-house anyway. The conversation or the narrative needs to be, wow, Pearl Lemon look like a really incredible and effective SEO agency. I'd love to initially maybe start with a consult to see if they could support our guys internally. And to build that narrative, again, it's the boardroom experience. So when people look at your case studies online, when they look at Naveed Chowdhury online, do they see that you have got expertise that you've published online? And all of this stuff, guys, is free to do. None of this costs any money. This is you writing a 2,000 or 3,000 word blog post. This is you putting stuff out on LinkedIn. This is you building your Upwork profile. This is you building your Angel profile. This is brand reputation management effectively. This is, what do people see when they quickly look you up? Do you look like you're an expert? Watch my case study of how I dominated page 1 for X. So these things need to be in play, because you're going to lose more business than you'll win if these aren't, because at some point during the due diligence process, these are the questions I think that people look at and they ask themselves, especially when you're remote. They look at it way more when you're remote, because in person offers you a lot of advantages that disappear when you're remote. Okay. So when you think about that again, and the guys who are listening from India, this is brilliant, right? We work with a lot of, we've got an Indian team, we've got a couple of Indian clients, and everything is looked at on a per pound basis. Could I get this cheaper in India is a great example, okay, because of the economies of scale and the resources. And this is where, and this is something that Ross has been fabulous at teaching me also. You have to position everything that you do, whether it's your services or your brand, as being something that's in some way special. Because if it isn't, and we're trying to compare like for like, it becomes a real challenge. Then it really does just become a volume game, and you're operating on the basis of luck. So I think when looking at it remotely, a lot of those things need to be in place, and where they're not in place, you're gonna struggle.
I completely agree with you. The differentiator when you're online needs to be very, very strong. On this kind of subject, so Ankit is asking, how do you pitch an SEO agency based in the USA or the UK to become their third-party provider and do their delivery for them? I've got some opinions on this. I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
It's a good question. So Ankit, I remember when my partner Daniela would sometimes listen to me pitch whilst I was at home, and they would ask about my team, and she would say, Deepak, why do you sound a little bit nervous when you say that your team have an office that's based in India? And I'd say, oh, well, because there's that perception that, why am I paying for a £5,000 per month service when I could look at hiring someone directly from India? She was like, Deepak, as soon as you introduce uncertainty into the conversation through your tone of voice, through the way you communicate, you demonstrate lack of trust in your own team. So she said that, make sure that I can close my eyes and I can hear so clearly the confidence with which you say, yep, I've got a team based in Vidura. There's Mayur. There's Samil. Mayur is amazing technically. He runs circles right around me, so he's going to be answering all of your questions technically. Then we've got Samil. He's head of strategy and SEO. He's got a long background in affiliate marketing, had a lot of success, and he's going to be the point man. And then you've got a team. All day he's doing email outreach. It's all he does, building links, talking to bloggers, talking to guest posters. So the challenge, Ankit, that I've had, because like Ross, I get pitched every day by white label providers who want to offer me white label services. I've never, ever in my life had someone who's outsourced present their services like that to me. The pitch is effectively, we could do white label delivery for you. What do you think?
Yeah, they've not taken the time to do the research. Jessica's literally just said that in the chat. She says it's really annoying getting so many emails from remote SEO and development agencies that are unprofessional, from personal addresses, and include absolutely no evidence of their work. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Ankit, what I would say to you as well is why are you pitching SEO agencies to try and white label for them? Because they're just going to nail you on costs. That's all they care about. They're eventually just going to then steal your contacts and try and replicate what they're doing. I would stop pitching white label services to UK and USA agencies, and I would go straight to the horse's mouth and use some of Deepak's things he's talking about, angel.co and things like that. Go to the brands. They're much more likely to say yes, and also they've got no frameworks that they already use for SEO, so you're not going to need to fit in to their way of doing things. An agency, you're hired to either do the thinking or the doing, but as soon as you go to another UK or USA agency, the thinking part, which is the high margin, high value part, you can't do that anymore, and they're going to ask you to do delivery. Not only that, they're going to try and get you down on price as much as possible and give you some really bad contracts. So it'll be like a 30-day cancellation or a 7-day cancellation. I would go straight to the horse's mouth. What do you think of it? Do you do white labeling for agencies, Deepak, or do you go straight to brands, or you do a bit of both? What do you think?
It's a good question. So personally, I mean, I love the advice there. I think that it's a limiting mindset when you just take the white labeling approach to other SEO agencies, because it becomes a very kind of horse and carrot and stick situation, which is you live and die by how much margin I can operate. So that's definitely a challenge. I think that we don't do any white labeling, if I'm being honest. I think that because we built quite a solid brand, white label agencies seem to we've not really had any joint venture stuff that's happened to that degree. My opinion of it, to kind of add to that, Ankit, is it's why not, for example, approach other companies? So there's two things. Number one, I think India has the most billionaires in the world. I'm pretty sure it's got the biggest software. So many amazing startups are coming out of India. There's the most bit. Why don't you just pitch in India? I mean, work with your strong suit, right? That's the first thing that I'd say. The second thing that I would say is that you need to compare your agency and yourself to other agencies that are positioning or trying to do the same thing. If you don't look drastically different, then I'm just going to assume, based upon my negative preconceptions, that you're and I struggle with this as well, right? When I was on Angel, when I was in Upwork, I had a lot less success than others, because people sometimes would see my name and they'd assume that, okay, this is going to be maybe a cheap guy who's going to offer cheap services. And that's sometimes a challenge that you're met with, which is why the brand element becomes like ultimately so important in terms of the differentiation. And then the third thing I'd finally finish by is use preconceptions to your advantage. So one of the things that became most effective when I went into pitches, I'd say that, you know what, I'm Indian, so I'm going to outwork everybody else that's in the damn room. And
I like that.
Never failed to get me a laugh anywhere, because that's looking at the stereotype that people have of Indians, but using it in a way that's really positive. I'm Indian, so you know what? I'm going to work damn hard for you, and you know what? The work's going to be probably bloody good, because all I live, sleep, and dream about is SEO, and it gets laughs. So think about how you can reposition some of these negative preconceptions that people have about you.
Positive racial stereotypes as a sales method. That's interesting. I don't know if that would work for Scotland. Oh, I'm really good at drinking whiskey, so never mind. So there's interesting stuff coming from Abhay. He's asking about pricing in particular. Does it change based on client or operating costs or deliverables? How do you set pricing strategy for your business? Are you putting together packages? Are they all unique and bespoke? How do you begin to approach that? If it's a massive company, does the price change? If it's a small company, how does it work?
So Abby, I think that one of the things that become important are to have productized offerings. So, in its simplest essence, we have strategies that we take people on, but then in terms of pricing, we have silver, gold, and bronze. So having 3 options gives clients an opportunity to pick between price plans, as opposed to just picking yes or no. That's the first thing. The second, and this is probably quite typical of agencies that I do see, in terms of how then does price differentiate. You need to build enough profit in, so there's a decent degree of flexibility with the actual plans that you offer. So for us, we'd have a plan that would start from maybe 2,500 and it will go up to 6,000, and between those there's a lot of kind of differentials in terms of what I can adjust based upon the actual client and the delivery. So I think per client pricing tends to lean you towards being a bit more like a software company, and it becomes difficult, I think, at times. But every agency is a little bit different, and I think that the great thing with yourself being based in India, I presume, is that you do have the margin for flexibility, because you've got economies of scale that can work well and work really well for you. You can get a great Indian team who will cost 2/3 to 1/3 of what someone who's their equivalent in the UK will cost. There's no drop in quality. There's perhaps potentially an increase in quality. Number 30. So I said billionaires. I don't know, but that's also millionaires. Yeah. So number 13.
We're not interested in millions.
I could be wrong. I read it a few years back, and I always I thought about that. I was like, why don't Indians pitch to Indians? It just just makes sense. So they're the things that I tend to do, Abby, in terms of determining like pricing. I try and keep it flat, especially as you scale your agency, and all of my sales team work on commission. So the sales team that I work with now are all commission based, and they get a percentage based upon deals that they close. So it's in my interest to offer productized services for all of them, because they deal with all of the leads that come in, and it doesn't scale very well when they need to adjust per plan. There's still some degree of flexibility, but having standardized pricing with standardized packages that demonstrate value, and that's probably the biggest challenge, that as Ross used to talk about, having a really effective statement of work, having really effective line by line, value adds becomes important, especially when your sales team are selling it. So that's kind of what's worked for us.
The interesting thing about that, Deepak, when I think about pricing models, I think about agency, either profit margins and revenue, and how those things are very different. So guys in the chat, we talk about, India's number 3 for billionaires. There you go. So we talk about top line versus bottom line revenue. If you've got fixed pricing, you've got lots of packages like silver, gold, and bronze. The great thing about that is it's productized, so therefore your top line, your profit, is probably not going to move very much from client to client, which is great. So you can get very reliable income and very reliable profit margins. However, hitting extreme levels of scale with that is very hard, and you price yourself out a certain market. So if you're in a place where you've productized it, that means you've got a certain client that you go for. It removes all the low end, and it removes all the extreme high end enterprise stuff like IBM and Virgin and all that sort of stuff, because you can't sell because you need to go in bespoke, and it keeps your profit margin solid. So that's a really good way of doing it. If you're looking for a little bit more headache and you're looking for high level top line growth, so high revenue, low profits, you would flip it around. And if you're doing the high revenue, low profit thing, you need to be turning over literally millions to make any decent money. Whereas with Deepak's way, you don't need to be turning over 10 million quid a year to make good cash. Whereas, Deepak, let me ask you this question. Do you know what the average profit margin is of the big 3 marketing agencies in the UK?
Oh, I don't actually. No, I don't.
14%.
Oh, really?
Right. Okay. So if someone's turning over 3 million quid right now, you're like, we'd be making considerably more than them on a very much smaller scale. So it just depends what you're trying to do.
Absolutely, guys. I didn't know some of those numbers. It's really interesting to hear that, and I think that for yourselves, when you're building that remote team, and you're looking at putting together a package that you can obviously position to anybody from anywhere around the world, I think that it's critically important that you make sure that a lot of those elements in place. And one of the other things that we would do when I was just starting out was I would have that same virtual assistant who would do the angel funnel for me. I would say, can you Google SEO agency London? Can you then have a look at what companies appear? Can you then just quickly look and see for their branded search all of the websites they appear on? And then can you put all of those into a spreadsheet? And then can you register Pearl Lemon on every single same website? So if Type A Media or any company, Found is another example of a company that's on page 1. I'd say, what websites do Found list on? Oh, they're on Glassdoor, they're on Trustpilot, they've got a Google My Business, they're on Clutch, they're on registered agencies. But then, Type A are on this other site that I've not heard of. It's called Design Rush. Oh, okay, great. Let's register on absolutely every platform. So that was one of the other things. That's a simple thing to do that you can entirely outsource, and then you can begin to do the same thing from a personal influencer place. So then I began to switch it and say, well, what's Ross Tavendale listed on? What's Jason Bernard? What's Paul Lovell? What platforms are these guys listed on? Oh, there's this website I've never heard of. Fantastic. This is how we begun to win really good work from Clutch, because another agency was listed upon it. We got a profile put onto there. We began posting reviews. We won our first £7,500 worth of work from it. And I was like, this is interesting.
Excellent. Congratulations.
guys, just copy. You know, there's huge value in literally just, but it's collective copying, right? So I collectively copy the platforms that every agency that ranks on page 1 of Google for SEO Agency London are listed upon. For me, it just seemed like an obvious thing to do for brand search and for personal search. And you then discover there's little nuggets within that the other, you know, that the agencies aren't listed on, because the reality is that, you know, most other businesses don't do that for whatever reason. And this is what's actually helped us win some of the corporate clients that we begin to win now, because then they look us up and we appear very strong for branded search. And you know what? It may be, you know, Coca-Cola Malta that want to work with a UK-based agency, and they're looking out of Malta, and all they're doing is a Google search. And actually, that's the funnel that probably starts 2 months off before they contact you. That happens, that we've begun to see from corporate companies that approach us, whether it's been Gartner Consulting who approached us, or VistaJet approached us, and we've talked about their journey. And their journey began about a month and a half before, and it started with an intern. And that intern had no idea where to look. So they'd start on Clutch, and they'd start on Design Rush. And that was where they started. And that was how we eventually won contracts at some of those places. So that's the other way to consider it, that you can still, in a remote only entire model, win corporate clients. Because when they're out of Malta or out of Utah, United States, they don't care about your office. They just care about your perceived expertise. So that's kind of the other myth that I guess I want to blow.
That's a fantastic one. If they are not from where you're from, like they really don't care where the office is, that's absolutely amazing. The lead gen stuff, that is extreme. No, I'm actually going to use that. That's getting nicked right now. As soon as this call's over, I'm on it. That's fantastic, man. Really cool. So I want to learn a little bit about Deepak, the man, the myth, the legend. In terms of when you're doing your actual work. Now, I know where you work because I see you send me a photograph of your watch at 4:30 every morning, and then you say you're off to a particular place. What's it like working out of places that are not your home when you're going into local places? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So guys, I do have an office of sorts. An office, really, and what people think about when you think about an office, it's about building a powerful routine. Okay, that's really what an office in my mind constitutes. I want to have a place of work that I know I can go to every day, and when I'm there, it's about working. So as you'll notice, this is my place of doing webinars, because I'm always sat with this damn pillow, and this is my, just, you know, and this is probably similar to a lot of you guys. So equally, I go to Costa Coffee, I have noise blocking headphones, I put on a YouTube white noise. So I put white noise on YouTube. Shh. I turn it up relatively high. It blocks out everything around me. I close all my tabs, and then I start working. And that's kind of the process that I'll follow. I'll grab a cup of coffee, I'll listen to white noise, and then I'll just sit and work for like an hour, or probably even 20 to 30 minutes in sprints. And you know, that's kind of the process. It's quite maybe antisocial. What I do like going there for is having some background noise. So when I step out, I'll take my headphones off. Suddenly I'll start hearing some stuff, etc. And then when I'm ready to commit again, turn the white noise back on, plug my headphones in, and then I'll try and smash out a blog, or I'll try and smash out, you know, now I still do the Upwork proposal process, Ross, but because it's templatized now, it takes me 4 minutes, 45 seconds on average to submit 10 proposals a day. And then from that, I'll maybe win in new business $5,000 to $7,000 a month in new business. So then I'm like, well, it's 5 minutes a day. It's worth it. It just makes sense to do it. And I treat things like that in the downtime. So that's kind of, you know, an example of the routine that I'll follow. And then also on all of the platforms that we have, like Clutch, Design Rush, Google My Business, it's standardized into the process that the sales team follow up at. As soon as the guys get the first month proposal, the first month report, and they're happy, we get a review from everybody. We just get a review. We also get reviews from partners that we work with. So if we hire an intern, as part of the induction process, 30 days in, they have to leave a review on Glassdoor. They have to leave a personal review for me on LinkedIn. I've got 78 recommendations on LinkedIn. Who has that? I have that because I make everyone, as a process, leave me a review. Even if you work with me for 4 days, So there's like some insights into some of the things that I do to continue building that kind of brand strength and reputation and routines that I think are powerful.
That's fascinating. You're creating virtuous cycles of things that are self-reinforcing. It's incredibly smart, and getting them to do it at the start. So usually what happens with Glassdoor is you ask employees to fill it out when they leave your company, and they're in a considerably they're in a considerably different mindset when they're leaving. So first month, excellent. Do you do that with clients as well? I'd love you to review us. How do you think it's going? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as someone says, Deepak, that was really happy with the report, we have the bit.ly links that go straight to a review page. I don't like to have any review that isn't documented. So if it isn't on a public platform, then for me, that's not a review I can do much with. And that's basically something for me that's critically important. So if Ross ever says, well done, I'll say, amazing, Ross, and I send him a direct link that opens up to Google My Business, and I get him to write a review. In some instances where you get lazy clients, you pre-write the actual review, and then you send it to them and say, look, change anything you want, or if you think this is accurate, just post it. 40% of the time, they just post it because they're like, yeah, I agree, fine. So these are some of the processes that we'll undergo. And again, guys, you know, the reward versus return. For me, writing a Google review on behalf of my client takes about a minute, and I send it to them and I say, look, you need to edit this if you're not happy with it. So it's still technically their words, their writing, but then they just post it because everyone's lazy. So you need to enable the self-fulfilling process. So this is how, if you look at Pearl Lemon, how did we get 100 reviews on Google My Business? It's this process. No one touches Pearl Lemon, whether contractor, full-time, remote, client, without leaving a review of the business. Never. 100% of people tend to leave reviews for us.
So this is interesting. So after they're leaving the reviews after 30 days and stuff like that, and you're all getting on great guns, everyone's really happy. What if the client then drops a clanger and says, you know, Deepak, I love this process so much, but I want to meet you. What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I think that, I mean, I say you can't.
Well, not right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, that was one of the things that I also focused upon. I focused upon doing outreach in cities that weren't my own, so it never came up. So guys, I specifically do outreach in cities that aren't London, because then there's no reason for clients to want to meet me. And that was a big shift in our business, that we avoided the in-person meet because we target successful companies in Manchester or successful companies in Glasgow or Birmingham, because then I knew that everything would potentially be remote, but they were looking to do business with a firm who could achieve results. So to be honest with you, Ross, that was how I sidestepped it. When they are in London, I sometimes do meet them. 50% of the time that I do meet them, I often regret it because I think, oh, this is just, but that's about me deciding that I wanted to build a business in a particular way. I wanted to work with clients who are remote first, who are comfortable with the process and weren't really interested that much in meeting. And it means that you tend to engage with a particular kind of client who are less concerned. And they tend to be smaller businesses, right? They do tend to be smaller businesses, absolutely. But that's kind of, you know, a decision I think that you guys, you know, can make up front. And over the longer term, as we've seen, you do begin to win corporate clients because they have a habit of finding you. And that's what's worked for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's so funny how completely different our companies are, although we technically sell the exact same thing. When I first started out, it was when I was going for meetings and things like that with people, you'd end up being their business psychologist. They wouldn't let you off the phone, and you'd speak to them for hours and hours and hours. And 1 hour, oh, let's just meet up for a quick beer for an hour. That's the afternoon done. Like, and also you're paying as the agency guy, you're paying everything. So it's a different kind of dynamic. People in the chat, Deepak, are asking for an agency masterclass, and they all want your SOP. So I think we've got your next digital product ready to rock and roll. So with all this kind of shutdown stuff, like what's this series as a masterclass? Thank you for saying that, Semrush. So with all this kind of shutdown stuff, what's going to be next for you over the next, say, give me an action plan over the next 30 days. What should the guys be thinking about?
Absolutely, guys. So look, volume when built around good presentation of company, individual, and service works. People get volume. Volume can work well if you have those 3 pieces in place, because for the most part, people don't have all of those pieces in place. For the most part, you can pick apart almost 90% of agencies in our industry, and they'll either fall apart on not being uniquely positioned in terms of company, or in terms of the individual selling the service, or in terms of their actual service. So that could be they don't have any case studies, and so that works. And then when you add volume to it, all that we're doing, guys, in this environment where there's a COVID-19 issue, is that now I'm submitting 20 applications a day on Upwork. Now my sales guys are ramping up the level of LinkedIn activity. We're not changing anything apart from volume, and we're beginning to. We've lost some clients, certainly because we focus upon smaller businesses, and a lot of them have just been crushed, gone out of business. But we're also beginning to win clients back again, because there's always people that are hungry to do business. And to be honest with you, it's really just a case of if you have good branding and you send a simple enough email, it's all about timing. If I catch Ross at the right time, he will open 2 or 3 emails that he's been pitched to, and then he'll quickly do a quick check of the company, a quick check of the individual. And if those 3 parts are in place, he'll probably follow up with you. So I wouldn't even say necessarily that our templates are mind-blowing. It's not that. It's that people quickly look us up and they think that this is a company and brand I can trust. This guy Deepak is a real person. Okay, fine. It's a good time. Let me just ask him to get on a call with us. So Naveed, I'll finish up with saying our rejection rates are high, but when you're only sending 20 proposals or 40 proposals a day and it's entirely outsourced, it doesn't matter. And a rejection is not a rejection of you personally. It's not them saying, go screw yourself. It's just them simply not responding to my application. That's all. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. And I think we're going to end on that. Deepak, where can the guys find out more about you and try and copy all these amazing strategies you've been going over today?
Yeah, guys. So if you go to deepakshukla.com/blog, so go to my website, you'll see that I blog every day, once a day. I'm on day 33, and I've got a guide there that's a 3,500 word piece about how we're changing our strategy because of the coronavirus. So I blog there every day. Head over and take a look. You'll find a lot of my thoughts there.
Fantastic. All right, guys, we hope you've enjoyed this one. Please tune in a couple of weeks' time when we're going to be doing this. Again, we hope you're all well, staying safe, staying healthy. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See you guys.